Someone told me long ago, there's a calm before the storm, and I know it's been coming for some time. When it's over, so they say, it'll rain a sunny day, and I know, shining down like a water. I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain coming down on a sunny day? Leaving college was a lot like, I don't know, seeing rain on a sunny day. And I think a little bit like the Fogarty brothers, I had been leaving River Falls and planning to by the fall of, by spring semester of 97. And it just sort of hit me that I got to get a job. And so interestingly enough, there was a job fair in Minneapolis, and it was a communications and marketing job fair. They were looking for people. They had speakers come in from various places. A gentleman who sold the advertising for the Target Center spoke. They had an individual in from a number of ad agencies, at least one or two, because the Twin Cities has a very high number of ad agencies in America. And then they also had some folks in from regional media and, in particular, magazines. And in the Twin Cities, one of the staple magazines for social and cultural life in the city for a long time has been the magazine called Minnesota Monthly Magazine. And so I went to this job fair, and Minnesota Monthly had a speaker there, Tom Whalen. You'll find him in the directory somewhere back there. He was a really kind guy, really nice. But, we got to go to 3 speakers that day, and I had not chosen to go to the Minnesota Monthly speaker, but I figured that it wouldn't hurt to stop in, say hello, and introduce myself, which I did at the very end of the day. And I introduced myself, something to this effect, after he had, by the way, done 3 sessions of individuals. This is kind of an important point to this. I walked in and I said, "Hi, my name is Bob Burke, and I wanted to take a moment to talk with you because I had, limited number of spaces that I could go visit today. And I didn't come to any one of your sessions, but I did want to stop by and introduce myself and talk a little bit about what you offer." I said, "My sister does advertising and does quite well, and so I thought I'd take a moment." And I remember Tom stopping, and I don't remember if it was at the beginning or the end of the conversation, but he said, "You're the first person that I've met today that I'm going to do this, but if you'd like, I think I have an opportunity for you." Something to that effect, which was quite stunning after a few minutes of conversation with him. And so I went to work after college at Minnesota Monthly Magazine, but not for Minnesota Monthly Magazine. They had purchased and owned a second magazine called Where Twin Cities. And Where magazines are found all over America. You can find Where San Francisco, Where Chicago. There's probably there's a Where Los Angeles, Where Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Where magazine is the traveler's magazine in the hotels and often in the tourist stands around town. And I worked in advertising sales for Where Twin Cities. And, I came out of college, and you can, as I can point to in the video, in the audio from the radio show, I'm, and it's a lifelong struggle. I was very arrogant. But part of that came from being able to be successful by doing the right things at the right moment. That's not to say that I did the right things all the time, but, if you wanted results from Bob and from Stinky, then what you had to do is you had to give him proper incentive. But, one of those incentives that came right before I left college, to give you an idea just how arrogant I was, I went to the casino with Jabber, and while he was playing cards, I sat down at the video roulette table and I proceeded to go up $76 and then in classic fashion lose that next month's rent. So me getting a job was really important right out of college because we needed money. is the classic story. We had people who would support if we needed it. But, it was really wonderful as an experience to get to go to the offices of Minnesota Monthly. And I was interviewed by Steve. And Steve had been the publisher for quite some time. And there was a thing, if you gave him, oh my gosh, I might get this wrong. Was it a quarter? He would show you his press pass ID back when he was more hippie. As publisher of the magazine, he was quite a proper gentleman. He was a very really kind and really sweet guy to know. And he had a lot of really great moments where he really influenced how I did business and how I looked at things. He was great at pointing at opportunities for advertising revenue. And in one of those stories that I'm going to share here, it's about another first. And it's an odd first that I'm really proud of because I've just had so many unique and rich experiences. We used to sit down, Steve and I, and we would do a review of my accounts. And I would have a whole list of accounts I'm trying to reach out to. I've had those, I'll tell them where I'm at on those that I'm doing. It was a really good meeting that we would do. And he gave me this lead. He said, "Oh, by the way, have you seen this?" And I think he pulled an ad out. He said, "There's this restaurant, Babani's, in St. Paul, Minnesota." And so I went over to St. Paul. I called up first. I called up, and this young lady, Tanya, answers. And I said, "Hi, my name is Bob Burke. I'm with Minnesota. I'm with we're Twin City Magazine, and we have a great market here. You're right downtown, and you're a very unique store. We'd love to see if I can get together with you." And she said, "Absolutely. What are you doing right now?" Of which I hadn't really had anything on the calendar blocking me, and I packed up my bag and everything, and I went down, and I met the most remarkable young woman. And in our exchanges, we actually got along incredibly well. And so we forged a real friendship, just me working with her to try and put together some advertising for the restaurant. And the first isn't that I'm the first person to get the magazine to advertise this restaurant, but I eventually went to work waiting tables at the restaurant. This was the first Kurdish restaurant in America, as far as they could tell, and they promoted it as such, which means that I waited tables in the first Kurdish restaurant in North America. And the story of this restaurant is incredible, because it begins in Kurdistan, in northern Iraq, I believe, back in the 40s or 50s. And eventually, Tanya, whose father was Kurdish, came to America. He was Kurdish. So how does Tanya know Radwan and Maha? She was in the Peace Corps, and she did a couple of years in Africa. And when she got done with that, they said, "Hey, what would you like to do next? And we'll give you just about anything." And she said, "Well, I do speak Kurdish, and we just had gone through the war in Iraq and the targeting of the Kurds." And so Tanya actually went to the area and was there for a period and met Radwan. And one day I asked Radwan, "Radwan, what did you do back there? I know that you met Tanya there, but what did you do back there?" And he says, "Well, I had like a copy shop. It was a supply shop." And I said, "Well, why did you leave?" And he said, "Well, one day I got a letter in the mail, and I was being drafted into the army." And I thought, "Well, wait a minute, you were in Iraq, your part of Kurdistan was in Iraq." He said, "I didn't go, I ran. And then they caught me, and they put me in jail." And then he said, "When I got out of jail, they sent me another letter and said, 'We're drafting you into the Kurdish army, or into the Iraqi army,'" he said, "and so I fled the country." I said, "Wait a minute, if you came from Kurdistan and you left, was this whole Saddam Hussein?" And he looks at me just dead face and says, "Yeah, Saddam Hussein, that son of a bitch." Yeah, it was one of the more incredible culturally exchanged moments I've ever had in my life, where somebody really truly gave me a snapshot of what their experience was. And I had that experience while waiting tables at America's first Kurdish restaurant, which is still there in St. Paul, different location. And I highly recommend you go. they have fantastic food. And you have to enjoy the lemonade. And if someday I can get Robert Supper here, I'll take you, because I think you'd really enjoy their food. So that gets me into being a part of Minnesota Monthly Magazine, and I was there for, I think, just under a year. But I took a transition from there, and I'll talk about that in the next video, because I decided to pursue cigars, and that allowed me to have an entirely different picture of the cigars that come into our shops. With that, I hope you have a great week. Peace.